Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is Thursday, and all of our guests today, as always on a Thursday, brought to you by Vancouver Giants. Tomorrow, the Giants take on Kelowna at the LAC Puck Drop, 7 p.m. Also, the annual Teddy Bear Toss game is Saturday, December 9th. Tickets are selling quickly, so get yours now. Visit vancouvergiants.com/tickets, as we're joined now by Farhan Lalji of TSN. Farhan, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
Better than you, my friend. You sound like you're playing hurt. I'm impressed. Meanwhile, I'm getting set to go to Vegas for the Pac-12 title game later today.
Yeah, wow. That's just rub that in, Farhan. I appreciate it. And I'm sitting here with Dollywall and Ryan. And Oregon versus Washington. I'll ask you what happens, and then what about the future of the Pac-12? This just seems to be such a mess. On they go to the Big Ten after this, Farhan. Just your thoughts on all of that.
Yeah, first of all, I'm totally pumped to go because, I mean, this is going to be sold out in Vegas. Big shout out to my buddy Anthony at Venue Kings for hooking us up with tickets, although it's also
Here we go.
It's also a work trip, so I am covering it for TSN because it's airing on TSN. But I am bringing my son, and Venue Kings hooked them up with tickets. But look, the two teams played earlier this year, and Washington found a way to win that game, and it was played in Seattle. And just an epic football game. If you watch that, you just know these two teams were throwing haymakers. And since then, Washington has stumbled at times. And Oregon has just ascended, right? Like they're playing at such a high level. But I do think that from Washington's perspective, when they are on and they're starting to get healthy and can show they're on, offensively, I think they can keep up. And if they can keep up and this game goes right down to the wire, I like Washington because they've been down to the wire for the better part of the last 6 weeks, whereas Oregon hasn't had to play in that environment in a close game late. So, yes, I'm biased. The helmet is there, so I'm hopeful, and I'm trying to convince myself that Washington's still going to win this game. And as far as the Pac-12 is concerned, it's so disappointing, right? This has been a renaissance season. It's arguably been the best conference in college football. They've got great teams. 7 different teams have been ranked in the top 20 at various points this season. Outstanding quarterback play. There's been some really, really good football played. And unfortunately, it's happening in the final year because you've got these 4 teams that are going to move over to the Big Ten, which is a completely overrated conference that gets huge television ratings and dollars. But outside of 2 teams, it's painfully average. And college football loses for this, right? I mean, it's the Conference of Champions. It's been around for 108 years. There's been tremendous regional rivalries, which we've seen, last weekend with Oregon State and Washington State, and how much it means to so many people. And some of those games are going to continue to be played as non-conference games in September, but it's not the same as season on the line in November, right? And I'm disappointed, right? I hate the fact that the Pac-12 that there's going to be a demise. You've got Oregon State and Washington State. They're fighting to try to keep the name and the brand and maybe add some more teams to it later. So good for them. I hope it happens, right? But really, really disappointed because it was needless. It was greed and really, really poor leadership that got us to this point. Didn't need to happen.
Well said. CFL game in Victoria, Saturday, August 31st. Farhan, Lions, regular season game against the Ottawa Red Blacks. What's your opinion of this move by the Lions in the Canadian Football League?
I think it's a great thing. And look, ultimately, there's going to be fewer fans. And Amar Doman is taking that, right? But he understands the big picture and just the thought of building the brand province-wide. I mean, this isn't the Vancouver Lions. It's the BC Lions. And as such, you saw last year 4 o'clock starts. Why? So fans from the island and the Okanagan could come down on the same day and get back on the same day. And it matters to him to make this truly a province-wide team. So for the league and the team to want to extend the brand and go out to Victoria, it's on Labor Day weekend. They're going to do a great job of creating that stadium environment. It's going to be full. It's just going to be a really cool thing to be a part of. So I know there's some season ticket holders that have come to me and they're like, I don't want to pay for a hotel and a ferry and go over there. But you certainly expect the folks from the island to come over here. This guy sounds as cheap as you, Donnie. But hopefully it should be a lot of fun. And I applaud the league and the team for doing it because this is now turning into a mini Grey Cup. If you've been out there to Halifax to Touchdown Atlantic, it's such a cool event for the entire league and the province. I think this is going to be the same out here in Vancouver Island.
But do they now, like Kelowna calls and says to the Lions, hey, come here? and Prince George says, come here. I mean, is this going to become like an annual thing or every 2-3 years? Like, can you see something happen more with this?
Yeah, I do, and it should, right? Because, like the NFL all of a sudden is making the draft its secondary event, right? And they're taking it from city to city to city. They used to have it in New York only. And they're making it a festival, and they're making it Super Bowl light. And I think for the CFL to do that with this touchdown event, I think is the right thing. So from the Lions' perspective, they're already in the Okanagan with training camp. But if there's other parts of it, that, like I went to, I think it was Fort McMurray at one point.
Yep.
Edmonton had a game there, right? And it was a really, really good deal for the fans in that community, right? To see that and extend what was then the Eskimos brand, now the Elks. So I do think that the league should try to have an event like this that they take across the country and not just marry it to Atlantic Canada. And, we'll see what happens with expansion there. But, I think it's a good thing. And if it winds up being in Prince George, or how about Fort St. John? You guys can go back to where you got this whole thing started.
Donnie,
right?
He's Fort St. John. I'm
Fort St. John. He's Dawson Creek. Donnie's going to try to get the Kim to Dawson Creek. Hey, I have no issues with that. But there's
no host it.
Yeah,
don't be knocking the creek.
The Dolly Bowl.
No. Yeah. We love the North.
Sponsored
Donnie
by Crown.
No. Donnie and I love the North. They're good people up there. I love the North. Yeah. Okay, listen. Let's talk hockey. Beauvillier traded. They got some cap space.
You finally said the name right.
Beauvillier.
After he's traded, you finally said the name right.
I'm telling you, he's gone. He's here, and now I'm not screwing up the name. Listen, answer the question. They got cap space. What are they going to do with the cap space? We've heard Tanev, Zadorov, Bear. What do you want them to do with the cap space?
Yeah, I think the most likely scenario is getting Ethan Bear signed. At some point, maybe after Christmas, early in the new year, when he's fully healthy and and the cap dollars are prorated and everything works out. But they've given themselves some flexibility. Beauvillier on this team was a replacement level player, and you don't pay those guys $4.15 million. So I think this is a big win for the Canucks. Forget the 5th round pick. The fact is they didn't have to retain. Broken by Rick Dollywall, they didn't have to retain. That's the most important thing here. It's going to give them some flexibility. Could they get a higher end top 6 forward? They could, but probably not at that number. So could they get, a top 4 right shot D, a second pair right shot D? I think that should be the priority because truthfully, I like what they've got in the minors that are pushing, right? Whether it's an Arshdeep Baines or Podkolzin when he gets healthy. He was looking really good prior to the injury. I want these guys to get an opportunity to come up here and play, whereas they might not have those obvious options on the blue line. So if they can go out and get a second pair right shot D, I think that'd be a great thing. And maybe the simplest thing is Bear because there's no acquisition cost associated with that.
Okay, before I let you go, we're going to rip this off. But you had a great poll question on Twitter. There was a time, it was fabulous.
Yeah.
There was a time Brock Boeser was viewed as part of the Canucks core. Should he be again? I don't know if you know what the results were, but what do you think? What do you say?
Yeah, the results were almost 2/3 to 1/3 yes to continue. And that means that, this is his platform year. He's still got one more year left on his contract. But what do you do there, right? Now, up until this year, the previous time on this contract for Boeser was viewed as very, very inefficient dollars. Well, now all of a sudden, he's living up to it. And I know it's a small sample size, but, when you look what he's doing in terms of the scoring chances that he's generating and the way he's got a different level of fitness in his hockey IQ and this is the guy, there's some polarizing guys in and around the Canucks. Brock Boeser is not one. Everybody loves Brock Boeser. I think his story and what he's managed to overcome is fabulous. And, do you pay him $6.5 million? I don't know. Probably don't think so because they've got tough decisions to make on Pettersson and Rona going forward. But, if you look at it right now in terms of his production and what he's doing and the role he's playing, he is just as important as the other forwards that you would put into the core of this team. So I think, I'm not saying yes yet, but I think you got to take a long look at it. It's probably a longer-term question. It's not a decision they'll make this offseason because of the other money they need to spend. But, at some point early next year, I hope it works itself out where Brock Boeser can be a part of this organization long-term.
Off to Vegas you go. Have a good time with your boy.
Should be fun. See you next week, guys.
You bet.